Well, here is another video I'm going to make for you. This is a teardown of a Slava 2428. It's got the day and date complication. This is a particular one, a medical watch with some insignia on it. I don't know what it means, but I was told it is from the Naval Medical College in Russia somewhere. Not sure what exactly it means. It's very similar to this one. This is more of the traditional Slava's medical pulsometer. This one's in really nice shape. Almost new old stock, but not quite. It's in great shape and goes well with a red band with white stitching. We're not going to service this one because it runs good. Everything is in a Russian acrylic print and Latin on the other side. So this one I like a lot. This one I've been holding on to for 2 years now, although I did rob parts out of it for another project. It has a cracked crystal right up in here and a crystal chip here. So I've been looking online to get replacement bezel crystal case. There's a close-up there. Haven't been able to find any, so this is going to be just like it is. We're going to leave it like that. I already took the hands off, have the movement out. And here's a shot of that dial. Pretty plain as far as any other writing other than what's on the bottom, but that is on the movement itself right there, or not the movement, the main case with that inner bezel. This I already took the hands off. This is the Slava 2428 and has two mainsprings that run tandem. Very unique system. A somewhat difficult movement to service with those complications on there. It has an outer ring right here. This ring, you can see where it's captured by that screw and keeper. There's one opposite this side. The other side, this helps with, this does have a quick date setting. It's on this button right here. It's right around the 2 o'clock mark. Depressing that will change the date. The day you have to change traditionally like you would any other Russian movement, moving back and forth. The dial on this is not connected to the case. It is in fact attached to the movement, or not the movement. It's not attached to the movement. It's attached to that outer ring. There's that outer ring and there's the mounting screw. So we're going to take that out. I wasn't going to show you this because this is like no other movement, but this is different because that is in fact attached to that ring. So to get that ring off, we have to get the dial off first. 2 screws and it lifts right off. Underneath you see the date wheel and the day wheel, and these are in the vertical position at 6 o'clock. Some of these other movements have them at 3 o'clock. We're going to mount this up into a holder. I think I robbed some keyless works parts out of here, keyless parts. That's why this hasn't been, nothing has been done to it other than robbing parts. And I think it's time to say, you know what, put those parts back in and get this thing running, even though it has a busted up crystal. You could worry about it later. Plus it's good timing for here. I believe that one in the red is Sunday. Our Russian members would know instantly if that is Sunday. I believe it is. Once you have that crystal off, there's a washer right on top of this day wheel. One of those spring-loaded Belleville washers, wave washer. And this is just held in there. It's captive. Okay. I'll show you the back side of that if I can pick it up. Okay, there's the back side. Each of those teeth engages a click movement, clicker I guess you would call it, that moves that into the next day. Okay. Here we go. Okay, this part right here, that's a little spring-loaded lever that engages to detent those teeth on the back side of that wheel. And this one here, that little tab, will click it over. The spring-loaded lever holds it in place, and that little wheel with the tab moves it along as it rotates. So that's the day function. The date ring is held captive under this plate. That plate looks very similar to what you find on the Vostoks. However, the spring that holds that in there is a little bit to deal with, and that's going to be located right there. And here's the lever that engages that. You can see that this has a quick setter at 2 o'clock. You have, so let's orient this so you're reading it. At the 2 o'clock position, you have a button, and that's located right up here. When you hit that, it'll advance the date, and you can see how that mechanism works. I'll demonstrate that. That's a real quick setting. You can't get quicker than that. However, the day you have to change by rotating through the time. Here is a close-up of that mechanism, and I will activate it. You can see how the levers are working to bring it back and advance it. So it picks that lever up out of the way and then advances it. Very slick system. I like it. Now, before we can even get to that, we got to start digging into this a little deeper. I'm going to get that spring out of the way. This guy right here. That spring has a little tension on it, sitting right on that post. I'm going to just pick it up over top of that post, and then you can see the lever just is freewheeling. There's no tension on that spring. No tension on a spring means it's not going to go flying. It's always a plus. These are fun movements to work on. They're complicated in that they have the day and the date. Getting this plate back on is a challenge, to say the least. I've tried many different ways to get that to make it simple, to get that spring back in here with that lever. If you remember, the Vostoks are very simple. You put it together and you lay the spring in there and you're done. Just KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. That's what I like. This is our day changer, day wheel changer, let's call it. We're going to take that out. Fairly simple, just a gear with a little tab on it. Cannon pinion, or not cannon pinion. This is the hour wheel, sits right on that cannon pinion. Very simple. Off it comes. So here we have this mechanism for advancing it through the quick set. We want to get this plate off And that is easy to do. Getting the plate off is easy. Until you do that, you're not going to get this ring off. So, 3 screws are holding that in. Got one here, one up here, and one over here. If you notice, there is a screw here. That's actually underneath that plate. You can get access to it through that plate, but you're not going to take it off yet. Now, coming off with this plate, that spring located over here is under tension. If you pull that plate off too quickly, you lose that spring, then you're gonna stuck. I like to keep that screw here, keep it in there, and try to, I'm gonna pick up that movement and then release, or not movement, plate, and release that spring. And I believe I did, because it is out of place. The little locking lever is out of place, and that spring is just resting in there. Coming apart, very easy. Putting it together is the challenge. This movement, not this particular one, but the 2428, was the very first movement I decided to take apart and learn how to do this 3 years ago. Okay, off it comes. You can see the back side of that plate. It's got a lot of machining done to it. That's a pretty intricate plate. It's a very small plate for all that machining to go on. I'm fascinated by it because I'm a machinist. Now, where's that spring and lever I'm talking about? The one that's going to be a bugger putting in. There it is, right in the middle of your screen. This guy, right there, and this guy. They're going to be the buggers to put back in. I've tried many different ways to do it to make it simple, and I've only come up with one way to do it. It works, it's frustrating, but it's the only way I figured out to do it. Now this video might run a little lengthy because of this movement. Okay, now that we have that off, that ring will come right off. Very nice. Now, what's nice about this movement and why it has so many jewels, a lot of people wonder where are these extra jewels. If you look right here, there's a post with a jewel, and there's one here, and there's one here. There's actually 5 of them. And those are rollers. They actually roll against that post like little bearings. And they house that date wheel. That's for smooth operation. Okay, we have the keyless works here, and I didn't put this winding stem back in, so I'm going to do that now. Okay, I don't remember what parts I took out of this to Rob to do another service on another watch, but as we dig deeper we're going to know. I can't wind this, I can only set the time, I can't wind it, so something with the keyless works is different, even though it does move back and forth and it clicks. I think I took a spring out of it, I'm not sure, but I have other parts, movements laying around. Okay, this right here is actually a spring that comes up and reaches onto this lever. That's our quick setting lever. We have to remove that, and it's pinned and held in by one screw, and it is under tension, but if you just pick it up like that and release that, you will release that tension. Makes it a lot easier to take the screw off and remove that spring. I don't know what these parts are called. There you go. Very simple, very easy. This mechanism was the quick date setting. Working off of this lever, comes around here to a fulcrum. Another lever is connected to this fulcrum, and then here's that accesses that button for changing your date. You can see how all of that works. Pretty slick. I like it. Now, I don't have to do anything with those levers because this ring right here will come out without having to remove much. This here is your minute wheel, and it is held captive by this plate. So let's remove that. Then we're going to get to the keyless works. Picking up screws. I found this is the best way to pick up a screw. Pick it up by the threads with the head, you know, in between the head and the base. If you try to capture it long ways or by the head, you don't have much grip surface, and you could lose a screw just by putting tension on your tweezers, and then that thing takes off. Something I've learned in the past. If you have to manipulate a screw to pick it up better, do it. It's worth it. Okay, that's coming off. Incidentally, I got this pulsometer watch from an eBay seller in the US with a buy it now price of $9.99. That's $9.99. I always wanted one of these pulsometers. That red one I got recently a few months ago. This one I've had for 3 years. I was happy to get it for $9 even though it had a cracked crystal. I thought it was unique. Okay, now that we have that plate off, there's our minute wheel. Here's one of our winding gears. Make sure that's in the shot. Okay. And here is our cannon pinion, and that is a friction fit to this gear, and from what I'm told, that is very similar to the ETA Swiss movements, how that cannon pinion slips and grips with that gear. So for whatever that means, does that mean it's a better piece, better construction, better way of doing things? I don't know, but I do know it is similar to an ETA cannon pinion, and I think that was discussed in some forums. Okay, now we're going to take the keyless works out and see which parts that I have robbed out of it. I'm going to release that one. Okay, this is held in by 2 screws. My lighting is getting bad. These mainspring barrels are tiny compared to your single mainspring barrels on a regular watch. These are very small, but the way they work in tandem is kind of unique, kind of cool. This is one of the first things that drew me to this movement, was that double-barreled system. Okay. These are also pinned, screwed and pinned for alignment purposes. It's a pretty precise fit. When something is precise, it just doesn't slip off easily. You gotta lift it evenly. There you go. Let's see if I can get a little better lighting on this. Don't know if that helps or not. That might be too bright. Is that too bright? Maybe not. Maybe not too bright at all. Let's go with it. Okay. So there we have our plate that holds that in. And you can see, let's flip that up. Okay, focus, people. This lever and everything is in place. What we're missing is the spring on that lever. That's what I stole out of this. Stole it for another for another project. But I have a spring to replace it, so we're going to keep going. Rob Peter to pay Paul. Here's that. Very similar to other movements we've worked on. Now this push pin is actually one part, not two parts like the Vostok. So you don't have to go to the other side to get the pin out. It is connected to it. And then our stem can be removed. And our gears, winding gears and time setting gears with clutch system, we can take that out. Okay, that's it for that side. Now we can take that plate off, or the ring. We can take that ring off. I'm going to pull back a bit. And show you there's a mounting screw right there, and there's one directly across from it. Two screws, two keepers hold that ring on. Here's a shot of our keeper and its orientation. Same thing for this side. Yep, it's in the shot. Good. Now we're going to take this out of the movement holder, and we're going to hold it in this way, and this lever here, you can see, comes across here to the top of that movement. So what we do is we drop it down the back side, not the back side, the back end. We pop it out from the bottom, and then out it comes. So there you have your outer ring with its mechanicals for the quick date setting. Its lever, how they're all connected, comes around to this guy here, and that is spring loaded. Let's get a better shot of that. You don't necessarily have to take all that apart. You'll want to take it apart, clean it, and put some oil on it later, but for now we're going to just leave that as that. We're going to take our movement now, put it back in the case, or the movement holder, just as it were a regular movement without that outer ring. Balance is loose, so that's a good sign. I don't think this is wound up because I didn't have a way to wind it, but I'm going to check anyway. our click. Let's get a shot of our click. Our click is right here. I think that sun might be a little too bright. Let's come back around. Yeah, it's a little more subdued. Let's let go of that click. It had some tension in it. Okay. You can see how they work in tandem. You only need one click because those winding gears are connected by this center gear. Okay, first thing I want to do, we're going to reverse the procedure of assembly. We're going to get that balance assembly out. No, we're not. We're going to remove the jewel first, just like the Vostocks. We have one of those guys, and it's a little bit of different configuration. I don't know if it's coming up here. There's only one place to enter those tangs on that spring, and it's this little opening here. So you got to feed each of these openings in one by one, whereas the other one we could kind of pop it in. I'm pretty sure that's how I did this one, although it's been a while. I haven't done any of these in 2 years. So is that coming in on the video? Doesn't matter which way you turn it. Maybe I had one that was a different size. Did I make 2 of these? I might have made 2 of these. See how this one works. Maybe I didn't do them that way. This might be easy enough that we can walk this out one by one. If I remember correctly, it's a fairly tight fitting spring. I don't remember it being this tight. Like I said, I haven't done these in a while. Okay, there's one. There's one of the tabs out. It may have a little bit of residual wood dust left from from that tool. Blow some of that out. And it just took off. Did you see that? Probably should have had some Rotico on that. There you go, lesson learned. Capture that bugger. I'll have to find that later. Went right down the floor. Since it's brass, it is not magnetic. I told you. It's always good to have spare parts, spare movements laying around. It's probably at my feet. We're gonna leave it. I'll get it later. I got more. But if you don't, it's a crappy thing. Another little unique thing about these is that jewel keeper. Okay. There's our pallet fork and bridge, and that is held in with 2 screws, as you can see. One here, one here. From here on, everything's going to be straightforward. Assembly and or disassembly like every other movement. We're going to start with the balance and work our way to the main spring, or in this case, main springs and their corresponding barrels. This has a fairly large pallet fork bridge. Look at that guy. It's huge in comparison to other parts. And the fork, look at the shape of that fork. That's an odd looking fork. Yep. Another unique thing about this is the shape of the fork. But it works. Now, obviously, we have a bridge in the middle here that needs to come out before we can do anything else. So, it's obvious. Let's take it off. Okay, that bridge is loosened. It's also pinned, but it is part of the screws that hold it in. That has a raised portion there to act like a pin, a dowel pin to hold that in place. Okay, here we have some meat of the drive train, the main train, gear train. I believe this is the second pinion. There it is. Here is our escape wheel. Okay, that comes out like so. This bridge is 2 screws, one here, one here. There's a jewel back here. We're going to take that out later, because part of that is underneath the main barrel, the barrel bridge. And these are opposite of what we're used to, in that if you unscrew them, it will wind it. So we have to use a screwdriver to lock those gears in place so we can loosen them. Okay. Quite a complicated system in that it has more parts than we're used to. Okay. That one took off. That's okay. It's right there. All right. These just come out like every other mainspring winder. Okay. This gear is held on with a screw, and that is regular thread, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. We're going to leave that in. This one also, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. This one here is a reverse thread. It has those 2 slots milled into it. If you want that to come out, you must tighten it. There you go. turning it to the right loosens that screw. You have to remember where that goes, because if you try to put that in a different standard thread, it's not going to work. You sit there turning and turning and turning and turning, and it's not going to go in, and you'll wonder why not, because it's a reverse. That's a pretty precise fit there. And this has a shaft with a center arbor, just like other movements. It's a precision fit. That's why you got to nudge it off slowly. There's that two-piecer. These two I'm going to leave on here for now. We'll take a click off later for the sake of speeding things up here. And 3 screws hold this together. There's one at the far end, and then there's 2 right here. One here and one here. Let's zoom out a bit. These are great performing movements too. They really perform well. They keep great time. I love the look of them. Servicing, well, that can have its issues, as you've seen and will see. Okay. There's a lot more jewels, there's a lot more parts, but fun to work on nonetheless. There you go. Here's our mainspring bridge and double barrel winding system. And they just pop out. There's one. There's another. They were connected by gears for the winder, and they're also connected by a gear for the movement. So there it is, and that bridge captures that one also. So we're going to take those 2 screws off and remove that bridge. A little magnetism on that. Sure. That's a tiny screw. I like to pick those just right so it doesn't take off. Where am I going to put this? Let's put that over there. Okay, dropped it, no worries. It's right here. Okay, that bridge is also pinned. There's a pin right here, and there's a boss at this end. Off that comes. Oops. Here's our wheel connecting the main barrels. Don't believe it's directional. I've looked at that very closely. They are identical end to end. Here's the gear, one of the gears. Here's another gear. This one has a different color to it. I believe because it's coming off the barrels, the mainspring barrels, it is a different material and it's thicker. It's got to withstand that pressure. And there you have that. This side is totally disassembled, ready for cleaning and assembly later. And the last thing we're going to do is remove this guy right there for the other side of our balance jewel. I could stop the video right here, but I won't, just to show you that it's a bit of a tedious thing to get apart. People often try to count up how many jewels this thing has, and they always come up one short. They can't find that last jewel. Well, I'm going to tell you where it is. It is right there. Right where that second pinion comes through this post. That is jeweled. Very tiny jewel. Very small. Took me a while to figure that out because I counted up the jewels and I thought I had a problem. I just didn't see that one. Let's see if we can get this apart. I don't know if that's coming over. Let's try a different size. This one might be too small. Yeah, we're going to have to do the old way. We're going to walk that out manually. Well, of course it's manually. Just going to do it with a... Okay, you all saw that? Pop right up. And guess what I'm going to do this time? You got it. Rodico. We're going to put a piece of Rodico on that. Keep that thing from flying out. There it is. You can see that. How am I going to get this together? I don't know. We'll worry about it later. Pick up the Rodico. There it is. Captured. Let's put that over here. Our jewel comes out. And there we have the entire assembly disassembled. So, this is getting long, so we're going to end this now. The next one will show assembly.